Welcome into this beautiful Monday morning edition of Pushing the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. I'm Mike Renner. He's Kyle Long, as always, and we have real football to get to. You were watching some real football last week, Kyle. You were over at Bears practice. Any highlights from the week that was?
Well, obviously, it was nice to be back at Hallis Hall as a former Bear. We've often talked like you don't often get to end your career on your own terms in the NFL. And especially if you're a long tenured player somewhere. And I finished in Kansas City, but my time with the Bears didn't end great. And that was my doing. It was awesome to get back there, see people like George McCaskey and all the power players over there at Hallis Hall. Got to speak with Ryan Poles, Ian Cunningham. But the most important part, which you alluded to, I got to watch practice and I got to see what versions of this new season's football teams there were for the Dolphins and for the Bears, because it was their joint practice before the game. And the thing that stood out to me about the Chicago Bears was the physicality of their defensive front. It seems to me like Grady Jarrett has instilled some sort of vet energy presence into this group, and they've got an edge to them. We've known that the back end loves to get scrappy, and guys like TJ Edwards in the middle of the field can make a million tackles for your defense, but that front has teeth, and I think Sweat is going to be healthy. God, he's big in person, man. Like, you see him, he walked by me. I was in the facility hanging out in the training room. I spent a lot of time in the training room, so I got to know the trainers really well. They're still there. And Sweat goes walking by, and it was like a jump scare from Alien. The guy came walking by the training room. I said, what the hell is that? And that's Montez Sweat. And this defense is going to be really good this year. As far as the offense, it was clear to me that Luther Burden is a real threat and is going to be a guy in this offense this year. I think Ben Johnson will have a ton of versatility going between the 3 receiver sets and the 2 receiver sets. I think Colston, you're going to see him all over the field. I saw him make some really big plays in practice. The big thing that stood out to me as well was in the low red area, they had these 11-on-11 periods, and I need to see that ball come out quicker from Caleb. And I know he's making plays. I know it's practice. I know it's time to, make these big time plays, but it's not always going to be perfect. And I think that's going to be the hill that this offense is climbing as the year goes on. But I have faith in Caleb. I think he made some special throws. His movement ability is awesome. So I'm excited about it. I saw Tyson Bagent in the hallway.
How do you look?
That guy's a horse.
Teabag.
He walked up to me and he was like, hey, man, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Tyson. And I was like, I really love the way that you carry yourself and you handle yourself. And it's kind of an interesting conversation. I don't know if you and I have had this, but over the course of the last 2 administrations, the quarterback administrations, Caleb Williams and Justin Fields, people have been like, when things have gone awry, just put Tyson Bagent in. We've seen that it works with him. I wonder how many of these situations there are around the league where there lurks a real star at the backup quarterback spot, and how much of a CIA cover-up these teams are doing to keep – and I'm not saying that, Tyson Bagent is better than Caleb Williams. I want to be very clear. But it's clear to me in talking to everybody in that building that, Caleb's great, but we're in a weird spot because we've got this guy, we don't know what to do with him, but they have that security blanket. And as we've seen, it's not too often you see the entirety of the season where a quarterback stays healthy. So all in all, really good experience. The Bears looked physical. The offensive line was, fun to watch, but we'll see how they do. Drew Dahlman, great guy. Got to interview him. And then I got to see my guy Tooney. So all in all, great weekend.
So lots been made of their attention to detail. Ben Johnson's got guys running. Did you see any of that when you were at practice?
Well, what I saw was not a lot of jacking around at practice. Mm-hmm. And if you've been around NFL practices before, as you have, Mike, and obviously I have, there's a lot of, if you're not one of these guys on the field,
there can be downtime.
In large part, there's a lot of messing around, and there was none of that at practice. I saw guys getting coached incredibly hard. I saw players doing player-to-player coaching. Obviously, there's a vet rookie disparity in that offensive line room. So I saw a lot of guys on the side of the individual periods working with one another and getting right. Look, physicality is going to be the cure-all for both of these teams. If it's the Miami Dolphins, I'll talk about Tua here in a second. Any question marks you have about the Miami Dolphins can be cured with physicality. And you see a guy like Patrick Paul come walking out to practice. And that's another, oh my God, what is that thing? He is so big and so powerful. They've invested on the right side as well with James Daniels. But, seeing a guy like Teron Armstead at practice, who's not even playing anymore, working with Patrick Paul, these are the kinds of things that the fans at home don't see. Like, you have an all-pro working with Patrick Paul. Things are going to be looking up. Tua is so thick in person. Okay.
He looks like a running back.
He had those training camp shorts on that were right below his butt cheeks.
Oh, yeah.
And dude, his thighs and his hamstrings are just giant. Waller's on the sideline not practicing. Tyreek Hill not practicing, but staying in Mike McDaniel's hip pocket. A lot to look for because that's not the group that I watch practice is not the group that's going to take the field week one. There's a lot of talent that was just walking around on Mike McDaniel's sideline.
All right, last question before we get to some news around the NFL. What color were Caleb's nails?
Didn't see Caleb's nails.
Didn't see the nails?
Didn't get to interview Caleb.
Did they say F Utah?
You know what? I actually made a joke to Drew Dahlman. I was like, you've had a very tan left hand between your legs. You've had a very, very white right hand between your legs, and you've had a pair of painted fingernails between your legs. What's your favorite? He was so puzzled by my question. But I thought it was funny at the moment.
That's pretty good. I wonder if he didn't get the painted fingernails joke and thought you were going somewhere else with that. But we digress. All right, today's show, though, we got a lot of preseason ball to cover. But in our first off the ball segment, we got some injuries to cover. Rashawn Slater, the worst of the bunch. Unfortunately, torn patellar tendon. He is out for the season. That's the same injury that Josh Simmons had that we talked about all offseason with him. And not a great one for an offensive lineman. This one hurts because we literally just discussed him in the Hall of Fame episode, saying, like, this guy is Hall of Fame talent. He has had a injury-marred start to his career, which is kind of, that's almost been the Chargers' MO. The Chargers have been one of the most injury-plagued teams just for like 2 decades now, ever since Phillip Rivers tore his ACL in the playoffs. What was that, 2006? It's been just a nightmare for this Chargers team, and it strikes again because this was going to be one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. The other injury, Landon Dickerson, Eagles left guard, carted off. We don't know yet for sure. So we're obviously recording this Monday morning. Haven't heard what the injury is.
When they bring that card out,
But yes, the card came out of practice. The Eagles obviously more equipped to handle this than the Chargers, but what are your initial thoughts on these injuries?
Well, my initial thoughts on Rashawn Slater are a lot of the same sentiments you shared. Look, he's a Hall of Fame talent that's had an incredibly bright start to his career. As far as the patellar tendon injury goes, I'm glad you mentioned Josh Simmons. Another name that I'll mention for you football junkies is Weston Richburg, okay? I trained with Weston Richburg, who's a center in the National Football League, an all-pro, Pro Bowl level player whose career was ended short because of a patellar tendon injury. Now, if that makes you sad, just go put on the Kansas City Chiefs film from preseason week 1 and watch left tackle Josh Simmons move laterally with tremendous efficiency, give ground grudgingly, and look like a bona fide all-pro moving left tackle.
Okay, we don't have to.
I'm talking about movement. I'm talking about movement here because when I think about these lower body injuries, you lack pop.
Yes.
You lack the ability to move. Your confidence goes away. You see guys getting their upper body over their lower half. Didn't see that from Simmons. So as far as Slater goes, we don't know yet.
Yeah.
How bad is it? What's the rehab like? But if there's any specimen on earth who I think could come back and handle this, it's Rashawn Slater. Landon Dickerson, we don't know. But this is a tremendous blow to the Philadelphia Eagles, who already had a big question mark at the right guard spot going into the season. Obviously, they've got a litany of options there that Stout can get ready for the season. Now he's got to get 2 guys ready for the season. We don't know if this thing's a season ender. If it is, prayers up for Landon Dickerson.
If you're the Chargers and your OC Greg Roman, head coach Jim Harbaugh, your backups now, Jamar Salyer is your best backup. He's had a lot of starting experience.
Yeah.
He's a guy that's been reliable when called upon. He played left tackle at Georgia, mainly a guard in the NFL, though. Do you put him in at left tackle? Do you put Joe Alt at left tackle? You have Trey Pipkins as well, who has had some starts over his career. Obviously not great. And you also have Mekhi Becton, who, if you'll recall, was a first-round left tackle. He played some of his best ball at left tackle. Obviously, injuries have struck. That's why he went to right guard. How are you shuffling this if you're the Chargers?
Gosh, there's two trains of thought that I would imagine Jim Harbaugh has. One of his trains of thought is that guy dropped his rifle. Mekhi Becton, go pick it up. I've seen you shoot. The other option is, well, your rifle works really well where you're standing, Mekhi Becton. And Joe Alt, my God, you're like Vasily Zaitsev out there. I don't know if you guys remember Enemy at the Gates. Just handles all things in front of him. For the left tackle spot, you might have to go. You might just have to lean on a guy with experience that has played in this jersey before and has played at that position. I don't want to move Joe Alt because I think he's on a really special trajectory, and I don't want to move Mekhi Becton because he just got back on his surfboard last year, and the last thing you'd want to do is kill the momentum and the confidence he had in that position. So you're going to have to fill it out with one of your aforementioned gentlemen, Pipkins or Sawyer.
Yeah.
And just help him like shit, because I'll tell you who doesn't need help is Joe Alt. So you can help that left side.
Yeah, I'm with you to a degree, but I think Joe Alt's different in that I don't think you're setting him back by flipping sides. I just think like that guy.
He's probably like, he's like, watch this. He's like, I can do this.
That's the only thing I say is that he, to me, feels like just given, when your dad's an NFL offensive lineman, it's like these, it's like Pat Surtain. It's like, could he go play safety right now? Or it's like the guy, yes, like he could do it all. That's just how it works when you've been watching the game deep in the weeds, technical aspects of the game since you were 5 years old. So I think Joe Alt is just different cat. He could flip to the left side. You're not going to set it back in your development if you so choose.
I agree.
The Eagles one's interesting because right guard was already, I don't want to say a competition. It probably wasn't. Tyler Steen was your front runner for that job. But now both guard spots are open. They obviously did a great job this offseason we've highlighted this on the show before, of budgeting for this, of saying, hey, we may not be as healthy as we were last year along the offensive line. We need depth. They got Kenyon Green via trade. They signed Matt Pryor, who started for the Bears last year. They have guys who can fill in at guard. So this isn't a death blow. The Landon Dickerson is so
That's
huge.
a strength. That's a strength of your offense.
Yes. It just takes its step back a little bit, going from Pro Bowl caliber guard to now, backup caliber guard. That's what it's going to be. Do we see this having a massive effect on things like the tush push, where you have two completely new guards now, outside of, Cam Jurgens at center?
Absolutely. And, it's kind of surprising that I say yes, coming off the heels of Tanner McKee being able to just, run the tush push seemingly with ease. This is the tip of the spear. And in order to cut through certain, objects on the periodic table or wherever the hell you might find them on Earth, you need those diamond cutters. And Landon Dickerson, albeit wider than my garage door downstairs, is that tip of the spear. And last year with Mekhi and Cam and Landon, you have a real threat to any interior defensive line. I don't care who lines up. Now, to your point, they're going to be battling for leverage, hat placement. Everybody in the stadium knows it's coming. You better have the best soldiers on the front line. And with Landon Dickerson being carted off, it's not that anymore.
Yeah, I do agree that it's going to lose some luster. It ain't going to take it back to when you have those tackles, you'll be fine. But it will lose some luster if Landon Dickerson's not out there. Last bit of news to get to. And this one was wild to me. CeeDee Lamb on the sidelines got just truck sticked by a ref on a go ball here. He was celebrating a little out to lunch here, and the ref just took him down. This feels like, and now again, I only played 7th grade football. I played inter-hall football at Notre Dame. But even from that, I knew it was like a known. You don't stand on the side like that. That's like hallowed ground in the NFL. That's where the refs run. Am I crazy for thinking what the hell was CeeDee Lamb doing here?
No, and this clip made me have a visceral reaction because I've been hit like that and my neck still hurts because of it. And to think that we could have a potential injury that would loom the entirety of CeeDee Lamb's life, it would be really unfortunate that that's how it happened. You have to keep in mind, CeeDee Lamb is not used to being on the sideline. Okay. CeeDee Lamb runs his ass off for 70 plays a game. And when he's not on the field, he is over there with, he's chilling. So during the preseason, you have all this pent-up energy and you're running around, you're trying to cheer on your teammates who are getting their burn for the first time, and stupid things happen like this. I'm really sorry that it happened to CeeDee Lamb, but let's be quite honest, there should be somebody on the Cowboys saying, hey, get back. There is a ref running a 4.340 down the bike lane on the sideline. Get out of the way, CD. But also, let's think about how many options you probably have to see things that you're not directly looking at Jerry's world. And when I say that, I mean this. You've seen a running back break away in midfield. Where does he look? Not backwards. He looks up. He looks up because he can get that full scale view of the entirety of the field, know where the defenders are. You got to know where the refs are too, especially if you're on the sideline, Mike.
Wild story. Let's hope CD's okay though. And well, I think he's not going to be standing on the white anytime soon. All right, we'll take a quick break. After that, going to get to some preseason reactions right after this.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
I'm going to play a little preseason overreactions. I'm going to say a statement. You're going to tell me if this is an overreaction or if it's reasonable. First up, Anthony Richardson's injury. It was a dislocated pinky, was ultimately what it was. And he's actually back at practice. Shows why starters should not be playing in the preseason. Kyle.
That is an overreaction. Yeah. Okay. It's an overreaction. We need these guys, and I needed when I played as many reps as I could get in the preseason so that when the games that count come along, the game is slowed down for you. The reads have already been made. We've run this play in preseason at the very least once. I remember having to run screens against non-Bears defenders because they had become accustomed to seeing our screens so many times. I didn't know how the real defense was going to react. It's the same thing. Preseason, you get all these looks, you get all these schemes. You want to see how people react to them. You also want to see how a guy like Anthony Richardson or any young quarterback reacts to pressure, to line calls. And you know what? They're going full slide left. He's hot off that edge defender. That's on Anthony Richardson. And unfortunately, he gets run over by the truck, but it's his fault. Let's be honest about it. This is why guys are playing in the preseason. You need to see that and have it be part of your repertoire to get the football out.
It's like anything else. It's a case-by-case basis. I'm not saying every single starter should play in the preseason. I would not say no starter should play in the preseason. Anthony Richardson needs reps for that play in and of itself. And him getting hurt on that, and now, again, I'm glad he's back. But this is going to sound bad, but it's not the worst thing that could happen. A minor injury like that, do you think he's going to make that mistake again? Or do you think he's going to not be cognizant of that in the future? That really hammers it home. They're like, hey, I effed up there. I'm hot off of that blitz. I'm the one who has to deal with that protection. That's what it was there. He's going to be more cognizant of that in the future. I can guarantee you. And it's a lesson that he learned without having to pay for it in the regular season where that would have actually had, dire consequences.
Hey, history repeats itself. And even as a pass protector, when I was, at the top of my game, there were things that I knew schematically that I had blind spots for. Some guys see cross dog really well. That was something I struggled with early in my career. It just got on me quick. It was like I couldn't see the fastball. Later in my career, it became the external pressures, which kind of came in vogue. And I had a learning curve there. But it always drove me crazy. It was never something I had figured out. Sure, I was more cognizant of it, but I had a blind spot there. And that's just the way that my brain worked. Let's hope that Anthony can get some brain chemistry, changes here on that one, the edge.
All right, next one. Anyone can play QB for the Eagles after Tanner McKee's big night.
Overreaction, because anyone is a really all-encompassing statement. Look, it's no secret that the Philadelphia Eagles have a fantastic roster. I'll liken it to it's a Ferrari, okay? The Eagles are a Ferrari. And, they have Lewis Hamilton as Jalen Hurts, and he drives the hell out of the car. And people say, well, the car goes really well because it's a good car. And some people would argue, no, the driver makes that car go. Well, Tanner McKee showed us that the Ferrari still works if you've got some skill. And we love to see that because it's just like it reinforces what I always say. Offensive line matters. Skill positions obviously matter. But not anyone can play this position because Tanner McKee is a horse as well. I use the phrase horse about some of these players a lot. He's a horse. That's a big man. The tush push works. Mass works. Okay.
I'm with you. And I like your analogy. It's like it doesn't take a super skilled driver to operate when the Eagles have what the Eagles have. Now this is preseason though. Like he didn't have all the stars out there all the time. He's throwing to freaking, Darius Cooper, Johnny Wilson. He's not throwing to AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. So it's not a schematic thing here, but I do think you can watch what Tanner McKee has done, whether it was a start last year, whether it was what he's done in the preseason over the course of his career, and say there's something there. Now, I don't know if he's ever going to reach high level play. He's not a great athlete. He doesn't have a strong arm. There are limitations to his game. But some of the throws, he'll throw an out route, like one of his first completions, out route against off coverage that just like he's thrown it. Guy hasn't even planted his foot in the ground. The ball is out. The guy hasn't even planted his foot in the ground on the out route. Like his anticipation.
Yeah, the Bryce Young touchdown we saw this weekend.
There was drop touchdown to T-Mac. But
the shot
like he plays with that type of speed at the quarterback position that it takes if you want to consistently beat NFL defenses. He does. And now is he is he going to be a starter next year somewhere? Is he going to be covered to that degree? I think so at this point. I think if he does what he did this first preseason game, he does it over the next 2 preseason games, and this is year 3 for him. So he has one more year in his rookie deal. The Eagles are going to trade him this offseason. They would be crazy to let him just go walk out the door next offseason for nothing. He is going to fetch them somewhere in the neighborhood of right now, I would bet a day 2 pick, given what he's shown. But obviously 2 more preseason games to go. I think it is an overreaction to say that just anyone could do it. You'd have to be crazy to say that Tanner McKee's not doing some things that look like they translate to the NFL as a starting quarterback.
This is the same kind of conversation we were having about Bagent. What kind of value does Howie Roseman accrue through putting Tanner McKee out there in advantageous situations? And you're making a car commercial, okay? People want to buy these cars, all right? My car sucks. It smells funky, and Tanner McKee, that thing looks sweet.
If you have a backup who you see in practice, he looks pretty good, but you're like, maybe he doesn't look great. How much are you trying to really make him gas him up? Because just if he puts up just lights out numbers, if you're doing stuff with him that puts, say he puts up 300, he went 20 of 25 for 252 yards and 2 touchdowns. Say he does that over the next 2 games, and you're really trying to make him look good schematically. That could bump him up around. You could get a round up in terms of picks. I don't know. It's an interesting conversation. All right.
This is all I was thinking. It's all after I met Tyson Bagent, and I was like, I really hope I get to see him play somewhere, not Chicago, because I'm a Caleb guy, but Tanner McKee as well.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of starting quarterbacks, Shedeur Sanders, after his impressive start, will win the starting job in Cleveland.
Why not? Why not? Okay. Why not Shedeur Sanders, Mike? Why not Shedeur Sanders? We've all got red flags in our character profile, our scouting profile. And you know what? There were some behaviors that I saw from Shedeur Sanders, a few years ago when Colorado first came on the map and I first got introduced to this flash fest that was Colorado. And I was like, man, some of these things just blow my mind as it pertains to the comments about the offensive line that he made that obviously bothered me. But I'll tell you what, as I've gotten to know Shedeur Sanders more and I watched him play this past weekend, I really like what I see. And the things that stood out to me about Shedeur Sanders in college continue to stand out to me in the pros. I'm not talking about off the field. I'm talking about on the field. When he is on the field, he is as cool as a cucumber in that pocket. He really maneuvers in the pocket with efficiency, and he continues to maintain a balanced lower half, which allows him to shoot his shot at any given moment. I thought the moment wasn't too big for him when he got his opportunity. this past weekend, and I think Cleveland Browns fans will beg for more. Now, you can sit here and argue with me about it's the preseason and he's not playing against starters till you're blue in the face. But I'll tell you what, when those bright lights come on and you put on an NFL jersey, those are NFL players you're playing against. And for Shedeur Sanders, in the face of all the criticism that's been out there, I tip my cap to him and I throw up my wrist too. Was it like this? Is this what he does?
It's just turned off back like that. I think it's a touch of a reaction. I was impressed. I'm not going to say I wasn't. He's very comfortable. I thought he looks physically stronger. Like he has been putting time in the weight room this offseason. He looks bigger than he did at Colorado. And I thought the arm responded also. And it looked just a little bit more zip than he had a season ago. All good things there. I do think, one, Panthers starting defense is ass. So their second string is going to be mega ass. And
Jeez.
His ball placement was average. And actually truly wasn't even was not great for most of the day. He missed some throws. He had some throws go behind guys. That was the biggest worry. And he had a lot of time. So all those things, there was a lot to like. It was not perfect. So for Shedeur, and I think the conversation with him has always been so polarizing. It's either like, oh, he has to start, or, oh, this guy is going to get cut outright. It's like, no, I think it's going to end
He's
up
the Manchurian candidate.
Yeah, just like how I felt about him in the draft time. He wasn't a first rounder, but he also wasn't a fifth rounder. So he was a day two quarterback, and day two quarterbacks more often than not need seasoning. And I think there's areas where he still needs seasoning, but it's hard to deny that the guy is talented at football. So I'm still going to.
And you would agree
right there in the middle.
that the moment was not too big for him. He looked like he belonged, and that there's no question.
Yes, 100%, 100%. And it's the next guy here. Jackson Dart will be the best quarterback selected from the 2025 draft class. And now this, obviously, we wrote this down. I could just say right now that this is an overreaction, but I felt similarly about Dart and Shedeur coming out. They were both, to me, day two quarterbacks that had a lot to like. And you saw it in Dart. In his, the touchdown pass he had was what he did at Ole Miss. He can sling it down the sidelines, outside the numbers. He has that aspect to his game. He's a good athlete. He can run. But there are also limitations to his game as well. And a lot of half-field reads in college that you still kind of saw in preseason week one. It still was simplistic. And so that remains to be seen. I just think that this is a wild overreaction, in my opinion.
I don't know. And you know this about me. I really like Jackson Dart. And I am all about a quarterback that has a little something special to him, which is probably why I'm drawn a little bit to guys like Shedeur and Jackson Dart. Yeah. Jackson Dart's got a diamond necklace, and Shedeur's got diamond everything.
I mean, the whole class. Cam Moore.
Go take a look at how the offensive lines reacted when the touchdowns happened. I'm talking Browns offensive line. I'm talking Giants offensive line. Guys were acting like they just won the Super Bowl, and you can feel the juice. Okay. And Jackson Dart, for all the questions about him, I love his personality. I love his ability to extend plays with his legs, and he's tough, and he invites the physicality of the game. And he even was like, I think Dave's actually kind of likes it. The only guys who are telling me to get down are my teammates. And that's awesome. And you and I know those kind of guys, and those are the kind of guys you can roll with. Best quarterback, I don't know yet.
Yeah, it's just, we don't have to do this just yet. We don't. All right, we got time. We don't even have to do it after the rookie years, as we saw with last year's class. We can have time for these debates. Next one, Travis Hunter's debut, where he played 11 snaps on offense, 8 snaps on defense, is proof that he will be able to start both sides.
No. Just look at the numbers, man. Just look at the numbers. What does starting on both sides look like? How many reps are you getting? Are you a nickel guy? Are you a guy that's a third down package receiver for us? What are you? You would know better than me because you've been doing this scouting thing a lot longer than me. I'm interested to hear what you saw from Travis Hunter, because this may be above my pay grade. We know the guy's in there. We know that he's him. But how much him is he? And did he show that to us in the preseason?
Well, I'll say a few things here. One, I'll start by saying when I watched the Jaguars offense, I was getting hyped. Honestly, of all like the preseason tape I watched, when I was watching that offense, just because of the sheer athletes, just because of the athletes at their disposal, I was like, this could be scary. You know, Brian Thomas Jr., Travis Hunter, and Hunter honestly looked more ready offensively than he did defensively from what I saw. And again, 11 snaps, 8 snaps, it's whatever. It's very limited. But he kind of got cooked on a slant route by Lance McCutcheon. And if you haven't heard of Lance McCutcheon, I'm not surprised. Then it was
he's going to frame that ball.
So offensively, though, like him as just a mover next to Brian Thomas Jr. as a mover is terrifying. You can't stay with those guys. And then the addition of De'Ami Brown, I mean, he took a jet sweep and stuck his nose right into a defensive back. And I was like, this guy came to get a big contract because I believe he's on a 1-year prove-it deal there in Jacksonville, or on a prove-it deal that he wants a bigger number, and he's going to come to play this year.
Those guys are dangerous. And
then Brendan Strange runs like a whip route against the linebacker that just leaves him in the dust. And I'm like, this offense has options. And that's not even to mention the running back trio, Tank Bigsby, Trevor Etienne, Bashul Tootin, that, I mean, Etienne and Tootin are high-end athletes that can do interesting things. And they had Trevor Etienne split out wide at times. And I'm just like, there are things at the disposal for this offense that are unique, that I need Travis Hunter out there. I don't necessarily need him on defense. You have options on defense. You got, Tyson Campbell, Jordan Lewis, those guys are solid starters. Jaron Jones was a 3rd rounder a year ago. You drafted him high enough. He showed some flashes as a rookie. You're going to start him. Like, you don't need Travis Hunter on defense. I think you need him on offense. So yeah. I don't think it's proof he'll start both sides. I think you'll still be featured heavily offensively. And the last one here, Jacksonville Jaguars. Cam Little's 70-yard field goal. 70, yes. Broke the record. Technically didn't break the record since preseason, but obviously 66 was the previous record. That it should count in the record books.
No, it shouldn't count in the record books. Yes, the ball should be in the Hall of Fame. Okay. And there are a lot of fantastic feats that happen in the National Football League that aren't in the record books, but they're so extraordinary. They're so remarkable that we have to find a way to encapsulate them in time. And I think this young man's leg earned it. 70 yards. And you got to think it's in Jacksonville. So that's at sea level. And there's humidity in the air, which makes the ball go less. That's called resistance. For those of you who don't understand aero and thermodynamics,
I thought humidity
and ballodynamics, but they should put that ball right in Canton.
100%. I'm with you that it's like the world's longest home run record or something.
It's like a 400-yard hole-in-one on the warm-up round at Augusta.
Yes. Or like not quite like a shot put world record, but like there is a world record and then there's the NFL record, right? It's like there's the Olympic record and then there's the world record. I'm not going to call this the Olympic record. I'm not going to call this the NFL record.
Got it.
But this is, as far as I know, I don't remember a farther one in college. Maybe there's been some farther ones in high school, but it should at least be in that mix that we should recognize that, hey, anytime you talk about Justin Tucker's record, you'd be like, yeah, well, Cam Little actually hit from 70. And given that he hit from 70 in this, chances are this record, some guys have been touching it, or some guys have been in the ball market. I think Justin Tucker's record's going down here sometime shortly. All right, those are your overreactions from the preseason, week 1. We're going to get to a little bit more preseason by getting to your mailbag questions coming up right after this. All right. First one here comes from Bear Weather Fans on Twitter. Thanks so much for asking all your guys' questions. He says, you arrived just one season after the CBA that got rid of two-a-days, reduced off-season practices, significantly limited padded practices, etc. Did you feel any scrutiny or judgment from vets on the team that went through those knowing you never would? Any jealousy from your end?
Are you kidding me? Yes, Bear Weather Fans. I grew up in a house with a man who did 6 weeks straight of two-a-days, fully padded practices, 9-on-7 goal line every single day. Cavemen. Okay. That's who raised me. And my older brother was part of that CBA that you're talking about. And when he got into the NFL, it was a lot more similar to what my dad did than what I did when I got in the league. So you better believe those old heads, Roberto Garza, Jermon Bushrod, Charles Tillman, Lance Briggs, Julius Peppers. You better believe that those guys let us hear it as young players. So, yeah, I was happy to be part of the new NFL. But now I'm that old guy looking at the newer NFL, and these guys are making ridiculous, but I'll just save it. And we had to go away to camp. Ooh, that was one thing. The Bears, they're still at Hallis Hall. They've got they bring camp to them. It's the most beautiful camp I've ever seen. I'll give you back in my day, old man yelling at cloud. Back in my day, we used to have to walk across the practice fields to the third field. Now they got a fleet of golf carts and a bunch of chipper young college students, and good on the McCaskey family.
Load management.
Good on the Bears for doing that. But I just like to yell about stuff every once in a while. So here we are.
Load management. All right, next question comes from Santeets on Twitter. What's the biggest hurdle for Jared Wilson? That's the Georgia center, now turned guard for the New England Patriots. What's the biggest hurdle for him in his transition from center to guard?
Shutting his brain off. Shut your brain off and go play football. Listen to the guy next to you who's playing center. And also, the toughest plays for centers is that odd front, right, Mike? Because now the centers have to earn their money because they've got a head-up nose. When I say odd front, that means 3 defensive linemen, and the center is covered. Oftentimes in a 4-man front, more often than not, never. They're never covered in a 4-man front. They're helping somebody. So for a center, just getting used to down in, down out, being in that odd front mentality.
Next one here comes from Film Enterprise YT on YouTube. What are your thoughts on Bryce Young in his first preseason game? Do you think he could be a top 15 QB? I can handle this one because I've watched him intimately. Ooh, that was probably not the right word. I've watched him a lot. I mean, I've watched like every snap of his career. Going back to Alabama, I do that for most quarterbacks. Obviously, the highly drafted ones, get more eyes on him. But he looks comfortable, man. I do think he'll be a top 15 quarterback this year. Now, when we did our quarterback episode, I was surprised at how crowded just getting to quarterback 15 was nowadays. With all the young talent that's entered the league in the past few years, it gets tough to be like, yeah, that guy's for sure an above average quarterback, because I think we actually have a proliferation of quarterback talent around the NFL now that is close to what we had maybe 6 or 7 years ago when there was a boom of talent and passing games were high. We're killing it everywhere around the NFL. So that's always difficult to do. But I think given the addition of Shedeur McMillan, that's the biggest thing, because he was throwing. You mentioned the end zone anticipation throw. There were other throws on his tape. The go ball to Shedeur McMillan, he hit the back foot. T-Mac had not separated. He still threw the go ball. He is throwing to Shedeur McMillan like a quarterback throws to a number 1 wide receiver. Already.
Jamar Chase down there somewhere.
Yes, that is pure trust, pure ability to say, I know this guy's going to win. I'm going to throw it no matter what. And guess what? T-Mac's winning. Someone asked, we're going to get to a question here that says, who are some impressive rookies? I'm not going to mention him because I'm mentioning him here. He looks like a day one, like those guys who come in 1,000 yards. That's what Shedeur McMillan looks like. So very impressed with him right out the gate. And I think that's going to be big for him. Now, there was some shaky ball placement. Obviously, he's going to have to not get hit. That's always the injury risk for a guy that size is always ever present. But I anticipate, given that addition, you are going to see a much more confident Bryce Young this year, just because he has guys you can be confident in.
Bryce Young being good is good for America.
Agreed.
America's healing.
All right, next question comes from Oxy Bosco on YouTube. He says, who's your surprising second-year breakout star? I have a few. And surprising would be like not a first rounder. So I went non-first rounders. Now, one of these guys is like everyone's breakout candidate, but I've been banging the table on him ever since he was drafted. Adonai Mitchell from the Indianapolis Colts. Even going back.
You have.
Routes, that's just like, dude.
You have.
He has freak talent. It's like you could beat Darrelle Revis in his prime with some of the stuff he's capable of doing. Now, he also was Anthony Richardson's first read on the play he got hit, and I think he may have run the wrong route, truthfully. He was lollygagging, and Anthony Richards looking at him, and I'm not sure. Like he's been known to do that. He has issues on his game with consistency, with things of that nature. The guy's a freak. So I'll say him. I think Tyrone Tracy, what I saw from him in that Giants game against the Bills, just what I saw from him towards the end of last season, and just the reports out of Giants camp, I think he's going to blow up, especially since this offensive line should be much better this year. And then the last one, third rounder, Jonah Ellis for the Denver Broncos. Watch him over this weekend. The guy,
I got to watch him.
Bigger, stronger. He uses his hands so well. And he's going to add on to this Broncos, pass rush. He made a little bit of an impact as a rookie, but obviously Baron Browning was there for a good portion of the season, kind of blocking him. They have guys in front of him, Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper, but this guy is going to play snaps, and he's going to be effective, and he's going to be a breakout player this upcoming season.
Where's Austin Booker on your list, man?
I had him initially, but then I just couldn't give him too much credit. And how many snaps is he going to see? What's his playing time going to look like?
I'm just obsessed with the guys that can roll it out there in the preseason, and they have that self-confidence to just be like, I'm going to eat. And
he dominated.
That's all that's going to happen.
He lit up the Dolphins. Now, going back and watching, some of that was the state of the Dolphins' second string offensive lineman. But dude, he's talented. He has that kind of just like know it when you see it sort of body control. That
fluidity.
Yes. That when you're 6'5" with 34-inch arms, it's just like that helps. That's kind of tough to block when you're that kind of athlete. Our next question comes from Morgan McGuire on Twitter. Which rookie had the best preseason outing? I couldn't pick one. There was a lot of good ones. So I'll just name guys that I thought were awesome. Abdul Carter against the Buffalo Bills. What he did to Deion Dawkins, a Pro Bowl left tackle. If he had an inside move where Deion Dawkins didn't touch him. The guy is a special athlete. Now, he looks small out there. He does. If there's one thing that remains to be seen, it's what's that going to look like in the running game? Because
Aaron Donald looks small too,
True. But he moves just on a different level. I mean, it looks like Micah Parsons out there. It just does. And so
Deion Dawkins saw a ghost.
Yeah. So he beat Deion Dawkins twice. He beat their right guard, who I'm blanking on, Osiris Torrance once. I mean, the guy is going to be an animal. And those, like, again, when you're doing it against first stringers, that was a first string Bills offensive line he was tearing up. That gives you confidence in what that's going to look like coming week one. So he was great.
Matchup for Osiris Torrance, 6'5", 350. And yeah, that was the thing that was the thing that struck fear in me the most is you find out what these coordinators' intentions are with some of the weapons they have early on. And the reason that they show it in the preseason is so that you're forced to prepare for it during the season. And when they reduce Abdul Carter down over a 3-tech, that's when everybody in the offensive line meeting is on the edge of their seat all week because they know that we're not just laughing at Johnny because he's got to go against Von Miller. Von Miller could come get you. Abdul Carter could come get you. Micah Parsons might line up on you, center. So you better understand what he's doing.
Yeah. He's going to be a player. So some other guys. Will Campbell, I thought he looked great for the Patriots at left tackle. Now, it was mainly in the running game, but remains to be seen. Nick Scorton, I thought, the second rounder for the Panthers, looked awesome. And another guy who, I said Shedeur looked like he got bigger. Scorton looked like he trimmed down. He was noticeably heavy last year at Texas A&M. He didn't have the same juice he had at Purdue. He looked trimmed down. He was back to that kind of 3-4 stand-up, and he was getting after it for the Carolina Panthers. Mike Green for the Baltimore Ravens, really no surprise there. Kind of was the take. He was NFL ready. We all know why he fell in the second round, but he looks good. Jamari Caldwell, whether it was the Hall of Fame game, JP Acosta was on here, mentioned him last Monday. He looked good this past weekend as well. He will be a starter there for the Chargers, your third-round defensive tackle. I thought Carson Schlesinger, the linebacker for the Browns, looked great in his first. And then two UDFAs I'll mention. Darius Cooper for the Philadelphia Eagles. We mentioned Tanner McKee. The guy who was hitting most of the time was Darius Cooper, a UDFA out of Tarleton State. He looks like a player. He looks like this year's Jalen Coker. Remember Jalen Coker last year, UDFA, ends up like getting reps, having some 100-yard games on the stretch. Now, it may be too loaded of a receiver room for him to break in, but what I saw was a guy who can play in the NFL. That was real. Him getting open, his physicality, that guy is a player right there. And then Willie Lampkin. Someone actually asked, we can just do this right now. Someone asked, Burrow Time on Twitter says, Willie Lampkin a future Pro Bowler? I want your thoughts on what you saw from Willie Lampkin because I was in awe of how good he looked at center. He never played center in North Carolina. I was in awe of how good he looked.
there's going to be a lot of people signing up to play offensive line as a result of Willie Lampkin going out there at 5'11", 280 pounds, and absolutely man, bear, pigging people. And not just, okay, coaches preach play through the echo of the whistle, check. Willie Lampkin does that. Coaches preach pad level. God gave him pad level. Coaches preach landmarks and having, eyes in the back of your head and instincts. We saw him in the run game do a combination to the second level, which required him to spin move, pirouette, and go get a linebacker. And I'm sure we got it on film. Look,
dude, I've never seen.
You can't teach this shit. This is what Landon Dickerson did in the Super Bowl and had O-line enthusiasts, in themselves because they were like, you can't teach it. Well, Willie Lampkin just did it in preseason week 1. I was so impressed with Willie Lampkin. Pro Bowler, I don't know. Fan favorite, absolutely. Coaches, little pit bull, 1,000%.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say he's gonna start this year. It's obviously, they have their starting 5 there, but he could play in the NFL. It wasn't, it's backups, whatever. He dominated backups. And if you can dominate backups, sometimes you will face backups in the league. And yeah, like everyone worries about what it's going to look like when you face Dexter Lawrence. That's a lot of centers in the NFL, though, don't play well against Dexter Lawrence. So maybe that's a little overblown. And, he will have issues just based off of his weight. It's going to be tough for him to anchor, but he is going to do everything else right in terms of being able to make up for those physical disadvantages. I think he can play, dude. That was a very, very impressive start for a UDFA for the Los Angeles Rams.
There's only a handful of apps in your phone that you turn notifications on for. There's only a handful of players that we see in the preseason that were like, I'm really interested to see where he ends up and the situation that he ends up in. Willie Lampkin the notifications are on, Mr. Lampkin. You are a lot of fun to watch and more power to you.
All right, next one comes from JG Music on YouTube. He says, with Keaton Mitchell back to his former 8.0 yards per carry self, Justice Hill looking like a payday, and Derrick Henry, how in the world can the Ravens make full use of the talent in the backfield? I have some thoughts. I'll start with, I think they could do, especially with how long, if Isaiah Likely's out for a period of time, if Isaiah Likely's not out there on the football field, I don't just want to go to 3 wide receiver sets. I'm not putting Nuke Hopkins out there at this point in time. I would do some pony stuff. I would do some 2-back stuff. I think given, Justice Hill can be your 2-back guy as a receiver that you feature in that regard. And then Keaton Mitchell could be your 2-back guy as just like pure speed. Like the guy can fly. And so I think you can get creative. When you have 3 different rushing options in a backfield, it turns into, you could turn into Navy's offense. You could turn into Army's offense. You could do creative things with vastly different skill sets in a guy like Derrick Henry and a guy like Keaton Mitchell that I would not be surprised, and I even fully would be surprised. I would fully expect them to do some 2-back stuff more this year, just because when you got the talent, you utilize it. So I think we will see that, especially when Isaiah Likely's not in the game. All right, next one. Merzit Silhal. Okay. You got a handle on that one? Merzit
Salahovic.
It looks Eastern European, I'll say. What's the weekly life of a player? Like, what happens after a game on Sunday, Monday, then practice days? How much time spent watching film, traveling, etc.? Just a normal week for an NFL player Monday through Sunday. What's it look like?
Well, I just kind of went down and I bullet pointed what each of the days are and what they mean to me as a player. Obviously, Sunday's the game, and at the end of this little schedule, I'll get into what happens on Sunday. But I'll start with Monday. Monday's film review of the game, position meetings, offensive and defensive meetings. You have a lift. The first thing you want to do is get your body turned back on for another week of work. Sometimes I wanted to lift on Tuesday, but the best my body responded was lifting heavy Monday, squat, and then you get your treatment if you need it, and then you go home. And Mondays are usually when the O-line dinners happen. You watch Monday Night Football with your group, quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends. They're usually involved as well. Tuesday for all players is off. And if you have an injury or a boo-boo you're dealing with, you'll come in and get treatment. And if you got a boo-boo and you don't get treatment, we got to talk. Wednesday, heavy practice. Okay. So you're, usually shoulder pads or shells, pants. I'd say full pads is what you can think of for Wednesday. And that's heavy practice, run emphasis. All right. So we're beating and banging on Wednesday. There's a reason that when they give you something in the NFL, you take it and you kind of look around saying, why'd they give this to me? They give you Tuesday off. Okay. There's a reason. You better come ready on Wednesday. Thursday is similar outfits. So we're, full contact, no tackling, high volume of plays. We used to call this 1,000 rep Thursday. This is where big time offensive coordinators get to really see how everything works against all the looks. So you find yourself doing the same protection or play a bunch of times against a bunch of different things. Blitz is something you got to figure out which defensive coordinator are you playing against? What are their pressure packages? And a lot of times it changes week to week, as you know, Mike. So you got to be on top of all that. Friday is Fast Friday, what I like to call it. You're in shorts and you're in those soft shoulder pads. And now you're out of the beating and banging. You get to really have an emphasis on hands and feet. You want to move fast. We can still pop each other, but we're not banging shoulders. Helmets are on, so you can still get your run fits. Red area, a lot of touchdowns. You want to really feel like your offense is producing points. It's a good day to feel good. Saturday is obviously the walkthrough. I'm in sweatpants. We're indoor. Sweatpants, sneakers, baseball cap. You're doing the walkthrough. Everybody's locked in. Obviously, there's team meetings on all these days, position meetings on all these days. And the middle of the week, you show up at the building at 7. You don't leave till 5. And it's football all day. If you're not playing football, you're talking about football. You're eating to prepare for football. And then Sunday is obviously the game day. Now, there's different ways to do the game day. I loved playing the 1 o'clock game because you wake up, you have breakfast, you go to the stadium, you play football. And then you can recover for the rest of the day. My anxiety used to set in for those afternoon games or those evening games because you sit in the hotel, you don't know what to do with yourself for 8 hours, and you go have breakfast, and then everybody splits back up. You do team meetings, and then everybody splits back up, and then you got 3 hours. You're like, can I take a nap or can I not take a nap? Will that affect my energy? These are the things my brain would go to that place where it's like I'm thinking about all the variables. Sunday was the worst day for me, mentally at least. I love the week because you can set your watch to what you're going to be doing every single day.
I have a question that I've thought it's like I've never actually got an answer to this. So for, away games in the NFL, usually home field advantage. It's a long way. Jesus, I was all over the place there. So home field advantage. How much of home field advantage, or I guess, disadvantage away game is based off of crowd noise and, having the actual home field, home fans? How much is based off of just like the travel? You're in an unfamiliar spot. Your body may not feel the exact same.
You're out of your routine. Anytime you're out of your routine in the National Football League, you're uncomfortable, which is why they always preach being comfortable, being uncomfortable. I mean, that's why we go to training camp. They get you out of your bed, put you in somebody else's bed, and force you to be the best version of yourself to make a team. You got to dance for your food a little bit. And when you get to these away games, they take that familiarity of having your routine, and that sucks. But I would argue that it's 80% crowd noise. I would say it's 60% crowd noise, 40 or 35% who you're playing, and the other percentage is, man, that bed wasn't comfortable last night.
All right, last one here. How much of an impact do you think Devontae Adams will have on the Rams? Will this make us Super Bowl contenders? This is from Wash to the Max on YouTube. I mean, I think it will be, so compared to last year, Cooper Kupp, I think it'll be a big upgrade from that. Now, how much of an impact? I think you have a big glaring red flag on this roster right now, and it's Matt Stafford is back with what's going on. Will it make them will it propel them Super Bowl? This doesn't put them over the hump, in my opinion. This doesn't change their pecking order too much. I still put them in the teams that are basically, nipping at the heels for the Eagles because they have some glaring holes. They have issues on this roster. Now, are they dominant enough at certain positions to get through? Yes. When you have a defensive line, they do. Just go back through the last 25 years of the NFL. What are the teams that have kind of snuck through to win a Super Bowl that, weren't like a 1 or 2 seed that people didn't really expect? What they have? Usually have an elite pass rush or an elite quarterback. Rams could have both. So they are in that realm of team that can do it.
Wild card.
But I do not think Devontae Adams is necessarily pushing them to a 1, 2, or even 3 seed at this point. I think those seeds are going to come from the South, North, and East. West is just going to beat itself up again. So
the West, as I like to call it.
All right. There's your show. We will be back
fun.
on Wednesday. So excited to have football back. I'll be breaking down some more tape over the course of this week. Maybe I'll have some more takes for you guys on Wednesday. Hopefully will. Until next time, keep pushing.